In this example, what we will be doing is using the gradient shading, the gradient cartoon shading, to create a mock specular highlight on our 2D rendered ball. Now this is an application that goes beyond 2D simulation. You could actually use this technique for giving colored highlights to other surfaces as well, but we're going to concentrate on the 2D aspect of it right now. In this scene, we have simply our default ball over the white background. So we're going to go through the steps we should be familiar with by now. We're going to add the cell look edges, and I'm going to color my ball. Instead of being white, I think we'll choose the blue because that will show this off better. 100% luminous. Let's render this, and here we have a circle. It looks just like your standard 2D circle. What we want to achieve is the illusion that this was done in 2D by someone trying to make the 2D image look 3D. So make of that what you will, but that's what we're going to do. So what I'm going to do is add a gradient and use a light. I'm going to add a special light. Actually, I'm just going to add a spotlight and call it Spec 1 for Specular. Move it out. And I'm also going to tell it to target the ball for no other reason than it helps me envision what it's doing a little bit better. And I'm going to open up my Viper. Make sure we have the right object in there. Okay. Alright, so surface editor. Solid ball. We're going to add this in the color channel. Select gradient. Everything's white. Add a few here, set that to 0. Okay, and light incident. And select my spec light. And nothing's showing up. Let's see if we can have it show up. Oh, I see. It is our famous butter side down rule. What is happening is the spec is exactly opposite of where we want it. So simply invert keys. Move this on down there. I guess we can set this to 0. So we have our edge. So as you can see already happening here, we have something that looks like a specular hotspot. In fact, I'm going to do it one better. I'm going to want to put a black edge around there. This one will have to be black as well. Tighten that up. Maybe set that to step. That one to step so it's solid there. Oh, there we go. So that's a little tight. Don't need that. There. And there we have it. Maybe that one could be a little bit transparent. Maybe not that transparent. There we go. And a little tighter. Now, I often have problems getting when things are real tight here. It'd be nice to be able to zoom in there, but we can't. But I can always punch in the numbers. That's 84. This one here, I can tell it to be 83. And that's pretty tight. Let's make it 82. And you can select between the arrows by using the up and down arrows. Go figure. Okay. So that one. So now we can make that a little tighter. So as you can see, it's giving me like a specular hotspot, something similar. And when we render it out, look how my sample sphere looks different than my render. Although the Viper is pretty close. Alright, looks like that edge is a little bit too much. And to get the real mock specular, I think we need to have a second light. And maybe move it up here. See how it's, because it's targeting, it's aiming at the sphere. We like that. I'm going to add another light. In fact, I'm just going to, see, clone current item, that's fine. Move it over, move it up. Go to my original scene editor, right click, rename it, call it Spec 2. Go back to my surface editor, have Viper opened up, see how it's changed. That's because I've moved the light. So I'm going to copy this layer, selected layer, paste, add 2 layers. On my second layer, Spec 2. See how it's slightly offset? And I'm also going to scale my keys and make it this way. It's smaller. That way it's much larger. Tightening this up a little bit here. The smaller one on top. Okay, so now we have 2 sets of specular. Let's take this down and this down. And I don't think we're getting a true view of what we think we're going to see. So let's render this out. And the blue isn't working right there, so I guess we do have to reset that. I'm going to load up a pre-made scene, which is included on the CD called Spec Ball. Takes a little bit of shading, a little bit of trial and error to get what you want. But it's an interesting effect. It's very 2D, it's very anime looking. And as you can see, we're getting closer and closer to what you get right out of the box with Supercell Shader, but you have all this control. You can customize things as much as you want. In fact, I could go right back into here. And let's see, this is all on color, luminous. How about if we pop on our brush image like we did earlier. And see how interesting things get. And we can start seeing the shading taking place. And using some of the techniques we had before, you can go in and adjust all those. So that is using the mock specular. Now this specular I used was white. And it's a very hard edge, and I have the black line around the outside defining it. It doesn't need to be that way. You could soften it up, and it could be any color. Say we're texturing a car, and car surfaces are always tricky, and you want to have a big, soft, colored specular underneath a hard white specular hotspot. You could use this just as easily. And keep in mind, those lights aren't, the lights that I'm using for specular are not really casting any illumination on the scene. I could set their diffuse levels to 0. I could still tell them to do standard specular, or I could turn that all off. At that point, they're not much more than null objects in the scene, but they are very useful.